Hello, my friends. We continue to monitor how the Russians are seizing Ukrainian territory. And today we could even say they are liberating their own Russian land. This is because there have been significant advances in the Kursk direction as well. So now everyone understands that negotiations need to start urgently as the situation worsens with each passing day. It's reported that Macron will travel to Poland to discuss a joint peacekeeping mission in Ukraine. Macron will arrive in Poland to discuss a joint peacekeeping mission in Ukraine, according to Poland's news. The outlet states that French President Emmanuel Macron will arrive in Warsaw on Thursday to gain support for his security guarantees plan for Ukraine. Macron's plan is based on the Korean scenario, which would involve deploying a foreign peacekeeping contingent along the demarcation line. Military expert Elton Baum, who is working on the mission project, stated that it could consist of 5 brigades, about 40,000 soldiers. Warsaw may take command of one of the brigades. Polish Prime Minister Tusk has also made a statement that peace talks between Russia and Ukraine will begin this winter. According to Tusk, Poland, which will assume the European Union presidency on January 1st, 2025, intends to play an active role in the process. Our delegation will be a co-creator of the political calendar and possibly of the negotiations themselves, which, although still in question, may begin this winter, Tusk said during a government meeting. He added that French President Emmanuel Macron would arrive in Warsaw on Thursday to discuss the results of negotiations held in Paris with US President elect Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. I want Poland not just to participate, but to set the tone for decisions that will bring us security and protect Polish interests, Tusk emphasized. Now let's move on to the front lines, starting with the Pokrovsk direction, where Russian forces are seriously breaking through Ukrainian defenses. Yesterday, the capture of Shevchenko, then Novotroitsk and parts of Pushkine and Dachinske was confirmed, with Russian forces making significant advances across the fields toward Novoolenivka. These advances aim to expand the front line for a push toward the Dnipropetrovsk region. Ukrainian soldiers on the ground report that the Russians may be deliberately breaking closer to this region to demonstrate their capability to seize large territories. And unfortunately, it appears to be working. Today, the distance from the current front line to the outskirts of the Dnipropetrovsk region is only 9 kilometers and 300 meters. Another critical advance is unfolded near the village of Shevchenko, where Russian forces are pushing closer to Pokrovsk outskirts. A closer look at the situation reveals that they are moving along the railway and are now 700 meters from Chunushine. There is also 1 kilometer and 300 meters to reach Zelenivka and Lazurny district. This indicates that in the near future, Russian forces could enter the outskirts of the city as only a single field stands in their way. How quickly they manage to advance within the city will likely depend on, well, how many roses are planted on the flower beds. But in all seriousness, the Ukrainian forces are already preparing for the city's defense. For the Russians, this will be a mid-grinder, and there is no doubt about that. Fighting also continues for Dachinsk, where Russian forces have made minor gains, as well as in Lysivka, Promень, and Myrolюбivka. It's possible that the Russians will approach Pokrovsk just as they did Myrnograd, but advancing further may prove impossible, as the Ukrainian forces will be ready to destroy them. It's difficult to predict at this stage. However, the situation here is undeniably catastrophic, and Ukrainian soldiers have stated that they will continue to eliminate Russian forces for as long as it takes. The most critical settlements for defending Pokrovsk-Myrnograd are Novoekonomichne, Rodinske, Grishine, and Udachne, along with the line of Sukhy Yar, Lysivka, Dachinske, Zelene. The defense forces still control 7 out of 9 major roads around Pokrovsk and Myrnograd. The agglomeration is well connected to the main arteries, with additional bypass routes. Completely encircling the area won't be easy. The question for the Russians lies in their chosen strategy, encirclement or frontal assaults. With Russian forces, it's unclear what is simply pushing through the flanks of a heavily fortified area with limited forces or launching full-scale frontal assaults. The battles for this agglomeration will be long and decisive, not only for the initiative in 2025, but for the war as a whole. In the Kurakhove direction, the situation is also challenging. Here, the Russians managed to advance into the village of Konstantynopil, and now the distance from the front lines is just 8 kilometers and 600 meters. However, as you can imagine, all the roads in this area are under heavy fire control. Russian forces continue to aggressively assault Sukhia and Dachne from two sides, with ongoing battles for the outskirts of Kurakhove as well. In the Velyka Novosilka direction, the Russians are also gaining ground. They successfully captured Makarivka and advanced significantly beyond the village. This has further deteriorated the situation around Velyka Novosilka. At the same time, attacks continue on Novosilka, and here the distance to the Dnipropetrovsk region's border has been reduced to just 5 kilometers and 800 meters. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, there is currently a lull as the Russians haven't launched new assaults, though shelling continues and there have been no changes over the past 24 hours. Additionally, the Russians struck an International Atomic Energy Agency vehicle with an FPV drone and shelled Zaporizhzhia. President Zelensky addressed the situation.
Once again today, Russian occupiers attacked Ukrainian infrastructure and civilians in Zaporizhzhia. They also hit an IAEA vehicle. Right now, I don't yet have information on the number of casualties. The state emergency service and the national police are working at the scene. This shows the reality of today's so-called security guarantees. I've raised this issue with President Biden, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Our main security guarantee at this moment, if we're talking tactics to save Ukrainian lives, is air defense systems. Everyone understands that 10 to 12 additional Patriot systems for Ukraine would make Putin's war meaningless. If our skies are fully protected, Russia's advantage in the air disappears. Their missiles, whether cruise, ballistic, or otherwise, won't hit our civilian infrastructure, energy sector, hospitals, schools, or universities. A single Patriot system costs $1.5 billion. Take that money from Russia's frozen assets. $30 billion would be enough to completely secure our airspace.
In the Kherson direction, the Russians continue their attempts to advance onto the islands and shell the city of Kherson. Russian war correspondents report that their objective remains to break through to the right bank. The task we have is unbelievably tough, crossing the river and securing a foothold on the right bank. Everyone knows this won't be a walk in the park, and without proper gear, it's a nightmare. Our situation with boats is a total disaster. Two batches arrived, but we are fixing the engines ourselves, ordering parts with our own money. We have skilled guys making something functional out of scraps, but we still don't have enough boats. If we're going in, it needs to be a massive push, so maybe the Ukrainians won't catch most of the fleet. We need proper boats, not second-hand junk. This is our chance to survive and complete the mission. Relying entirely on volunteers and kind-hearted people isn't fair. Those in charge need to get their act together. The failure to prepare for this operation is a disgrace. If our guys die crossing the Dnipro, the blame will rest entirely on General Teplinsky. As evident, Russian war correspondents are deeply frustrated with the situation, but they still appear ready to die for Putin. Now moving to the Toretsk direction, the situation here is also difficult, but the Russians are unable to advance as quickly as in the Pokrovsk direction. Fighting is still ongoing for Toretsk. They continue to assault Cherpinivka, and there are battles near Nelipivka, but there have been no changes over the past day. In the Chasiv Yar direction, only 2 assaults were recorded in the past day, near Chasiv Yar and near Oryhov-Vasylivka. All attacks were repelled, so the front line remains unchanged. In the Siversk direction, the Russians continue shelling along the front line, but no new offensive actions have been recorded and the situation remains unchanged. In the Liman direction, the Russians are actively assaulting Yampolivka and Zarychne. Shelling also continues, but there are no changes here. The Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all attacks. In the Borova direction, the Russians continue storming Zagryzovo, Lozova, Zelený High, and further south, battles are ongoing for Kurakhove, with attempts to advance across the fields toward Makarivka. However, no changes have been recorded in the past 24 hours. In the Kupiansk direction, there is currently a lull with no new assaults by the Russians. However, it's highly likely they are continuing to pull in reserves, as earlier reports indicated they would attempt to advance into Kupiansk by the new year. This is one of the larger settlements they aim to capture before the start of negotiations. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians continue their assaults near the village of Hlyboke, but they haven't had any new successes on this part of the front, and they are unable to break through closer to Kharkiv. In Vovchansk, the fighting continues, although the situation remains unchanged. In the Kursk direction, the Russians continue their counteroffensive. They have managed to shift the front line significantly in several directions. In the area of Glushkova, which the Ukrainian forces had aimed to take control of up to the river, bridges were destroyed and area clearing operations were conducted. However, Ukrainian forces had to retreat from that territory, and the Russians now fully control the area up to the border. So far, they haven't broken through to the Sumy region. Yesterday, there was a report of a reconnaissance group in Huyevo village, but according to the Ukrainian forces, they retreated and didn't establish a foothold on Ukrainian territory. We will wait to see how events unfold, but the Russians are quickly trying to regain control of their territory before the negotiation process begins. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.